Final Score. Only on the Alaska Sports Channel. With Keaton Homer, Skip Hurst, and Heath Day. Stay informed with all local sports action. Final Score. Only on the Alaska Sports Channel.
Welcome to Final Score, Alaska's premier sports talk program. Skip Hurst, Keaton Homer, Heath Day, and Rick Whitbeck taking you through the recap of high school football over this past weekend. Had some great games come through that you were able to watch on the Alaska Sports Channel. A couple great games that weren't actually there as well. One that we would have loved to have seen between Chugach and West, but we're going to go ahead and cover that a little bit later. Going to go start, actually, not just that game, but in the Wasilla game, Kenai, that one got delayed because of some ridiculous weather. Hail, and
hard rain, thunder, lightning.
Yeah.
Man, it was like lower 48 kind of weather there for a little while.
Yeah, Jace Daniels had rolled into Wasilla. Wanted to see if he could put up another 485 yards rushing. But nonetheless, we were at AFS for Friday night's showdown between Service Cougars and the East High Thunderbirds. And as many times as I said basketball as opposed to football, the game still went on. It was good.
You pulled off the basketball
Oh,
card?
yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, I didn't watch that game. I was up in Fairbanks, so, you know.
You're good. You weren't
I didn't miss anything?
No, the commentating was spot on.
Obviously.
As to be expected.
Did you pull off a Jarek Laws? How do you do?
No, I didn't do a how do you do. I did do. You tuned into the best of high school basketball right here on the Alaska Sports Channel. Tom Stoggeman doing color for me. He's over there going, but I'm watching football. Right before the commercial would come on. It was great. Going to go ahead and jump into some highlights here for the Service and East game. It was a pretty exciting game, actually. East coming out, starting off their defense playing much more stout than they did in their previous game against South, but Service still able to move the ball as we see Toomer stepping back here and throwing up a touchdown pass to Fromm, who is 6'2" frame. There wasn't a whole lot of guys out there for East that were able to cover him. And of course, you know, the defense for Service being able to take care of the passing attack for East, as we see an interception there. And then this play right here, not even quite sure it's legal.
Jump pass.
Washburn hands the ball off to Suey. He jumps, tries to throw a pass. Hero Ragunan picks off a touchdown, or excuse me, picks off the pass there as we see Toomer throwing it off to Naheem Johnson as he runs it in all the way for 6. Washburn trying to throw up a screen, ends up being picked off by Hansen here as he takes it all the way back for 6-2. There was actually 3 scoring touchdown turnovers for Service as they ended up, there's another one right there, Summerlin picking up a fumble.
Who's throwing the ball?
Yeah, no kidding, right? That thing
Ball
shot
right to him.
As we see
That
Toomer
was
stepping
almost as
back
big a
and throwing it up.
lollipop as the last INT.
Naheem Johnson picking up another touchdown pass. He ended up having to leave the game because of cramps as you see him going down here.
I thought that was a
in
celebration
this
day.
one. Toomer decided he's going to go ahead and take it in himself as he runs it in for 2 yards, picking up a touchdown to add to his total. Washburn throwing another interception to Hansen. That ball went straight to him, right into his hands, and that was pretty much the night for Washburn, how it went. Toomer's going to go ahead and hand the ball off to Langlis here at another great night as he runs it in for 6 points.
Here we
and then
go.
this right here, Scott gets the ball in the backfield, and you see he should have been
Break an ankle.
taken down way
again.
down the backfield, but
6, baby.
I'm having flashbacks.
yeah, it looks a lot like a Southwest game last year at halftime, but you're going to see it again. I mean, just relentlessly.
Bust, break, spin. Do something else.
He's breaking ankles
My
here.
goodness.
That's an "Are you
I
kidding
like
me"
the other
moment
Service
right
player
there.
that tackled his teammate there.
Yeah, no kidding.
That might be play of the year right there. It's
Right.
an early onset.
That's an early
see.
candidate.
Between this one and Bibbs.
Oh, Fluffy, what happened?
Yeah. He was gone. I mean, needless to say, those 6
fancy
points.
moves, man.
Those 6 points never should have been put up there. But you know that was a great assortment of moves put on there by Scott. East ended up falling to Service in that game. I believe it was 46-12, and unfortunately, they really did come out and they played much harder on defense than they did against South in the week previous, but just unable to pick up the points.
Well, I think the fact that they held Service under 50 shows that they did a little better than they did the week before against South, and they gave up 65. But also the nature you saw a lot of those points for Service were coming on when their defense was on the field. So there's definitely a better defensive effort for East.
Mm-hmm. And then again, you know, it's Service High School. they're going to play their offense. Even though they had their struggles, there was a few times where they weren't able to move the ball to start off the game, but just able to fall into their game plan. Toomer putting up over 220 yards passing. He threw for 3. He ran for another one. Service just playing the ball they usually do.
If you're East High, you're looking at your first 2 weeks of the season and going, okay, we're through the tough part of our schedule. Not quite yet.
I don't think so.
We're going to see them on Thursday night against another 2-0 team, Palmer. And then after that, maybe they can take a little bit of a breather, at least mentally, and go, okay, now we're through the tough part of our schedule. But, T-Birds played better this week, it looks like, but certainly not in the class of South or Service.
East this week coming up to face another powerhouse in high school football. Palmer this week. They're a 2-0 team right now, along with a few others here in the Cook Inlet Conference. What does East do to try to pull this one out?
Prayer.
Maybe some of that and some more of that. But defense, they're going to have to rely on their defense a lot more. Their offense right now is yet to get in a flow or any sort of rhythm in the first 2 weeks of the season. And, it's not surprising sometimes that your offense takes a little bit more time to kind of get into a rhythm. But after a couple of weeks, you would hope to be somewhere, starting to click a little bit. And we haven't really seen that from the East High offense. I think they're still looking for an identity offensively and somebody to step up. But last year you had a couple of kids in Jared Laws and Jesse Vanillow, 2 playmakers out there on the field, and now those 2 guys are gone, and now they're still looking for an identity offensively, a playmaker for them to step up. Maybe it's that Scott kid that broke that fancy touchdown run for the East High Thunderbirds in that game against Service. So we'll see what happens when they play a 2-0 team in Palmer. Palmer struggled a little bit week 1 against Bartlett. They were down in a majority of that game in week 1 against Bartlett. They ended up beating West Valley pretty easily up in Fairbanks this past week. So Palmer looking pretty good to start the early part of the season, but East has to rely, I think, on their defense more than anything right now going against Palmer.
Maybe rely on their defense, you could say to an extent, but their offense has got to figure something out because, like we saw in those highlights, there were a number of plays that their offense gave up the points because of turnovers. And what we see that's different with East is they're a running offense. I mean, they run the same offense that South runs. Coach Trotter coming from South, they want to run the ball. The problem is when you become so dependent upon the run and it's not there, you've got to keep the defense honest by throwing it occasionally. And what we saw in those highlights is that almost every time they threw it, it was an interception or
incompletion.
And so there was no honesty to keep Service on their heels in terms of not just coming downhill on the fly sweep every single time. And so East has got to figure something out offensively because even if their defense plays great, you got to put points on the board to win. And I think West, after watching their game, is in a very similar situation.
Well, Washburn coming in and trying to fill the shoes of Jesse Vanillow from last year. Jesse Vanillow, we've talked about this before. He wasn't the best quarterback in the Cook Inlet Conference, but he was an extreme athlete, though. I mean, he could break some ankles and he could run. He could take some hits. Washburn coming into this game, he's got some moves and he's got some wheels. The problem is that pocket just doesn't contain anything. It breaks down a lot quicker than he's able to make the decisions to move the ball.
But you also have to remember who they played.
Right.
It's not like they're playing, the Bartletts and West Valleys of the world. They're playing probably the top
Bartlett's
two teams.
not a bad team. We're going to look at this.
But I'm saying, okay, relative to South and and Service, they're a bad team. But, they're not.
Fosnesenka, the big V.
Thank you. They're not the big V.
So East is going to be taking on Palmer on Thursday. You'll be able to watch that game at 7 o'clock on the Alaska Sports Channel as we cover that game live at the Anchorage Football Stadium. Service, I believe they're going to be taking on...
off the top of my head, I don't even know who Service is playing this weekend.
That horrible team he was just mentioning, Bartlett.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yep.
Okay. I'm just going to put this out there, and we're going to cover this.
Where'd you go to school?
Lake Highlands.
Okay.
He doesn't want to mention the fact he went to Diamond.
I went to Diamond for a short period of time. Moving right along. This game for Service coming up, I'm going to tell you right now.
He's got his. He's
ready.
He's
ready.
It's going to be the upset of the week. I'm gonna tell you right now.
What?
I'm
He's
just going to put
calling
that
it
out there.
He's already calling it.
I'm calling it. It's going to be an upset.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you why.
Is Bartlett going to score? against Service? Is that the deal?
I'm going to tell you why when we come back. Stay tuned here with us. When we come back, we're going to go ahead and cover the game from South and Bartlett that happened on Saturday night. You're going to find out exactly why I'm picking that. Stay tuned.
Have the appetite of a major leaguer? Go where the Alaskans go for their game. Buckets in Soldotna. Always a home run. Buckets serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week. Stop on by to enjoy a juicy wild game burger, a bases-loaded baked potato, or a halibut with flavor that knocks it out of the park. Whether you're watching the game on one of their many big screens or talking about how your team won or lost, Buckets is your home for all-star food and major league fun. Check out Buckets in Soldotna on the web at bucketsportsgrill.com.
Welcome back to Final Score. Talking through last week's high school football. Moving on, we're going to start talking about South and Bartlett, which was not, it turned out to be a lot more of a game than I think anyone anticipated going into it. Maybe the Bartlett coaching staff had a little higher hopes than other people, but for the most part, this game was a surprise. So rather than bore you, we're going to jump right into the highlights, and we'll come back and talk more about it afterwards. So Keaton, take us through the highlights.
You know, Bartlett in the first couple of weeks has looked pretty decent actually as we take a look at Service and East right there. There we go. We got the right ones on the screen now. Alec Valdez, impressive for South once again, but Bartlett's defense has been playing pretty well in the first couple of weeks. They held Palmer to 21 points in the opening week. They only give up 17 points here to South this week, and Zyrell Jones is a big part of their offense, and Jones had a decent game running and passing the football once again this week. This is Andrew West taking the jet sweep down the sideline here, picking up good yardage on the play. This is a fake punt by Belgrade as he scampers down the sideline. Didn't lead to a score, but Belgrade able to pick up a first down a lot more there. It was a game of field position a lot of the time. Both teams punted the ball quite a bit in this game. As you take a look at Jones and a horse collar, there was a few of those. There's another one coming right here as both teams very sloppy in this game to start. A lot of flags as Jones gets decked as he was throwing the football, and Alec Valdez with another interception. He's got 2 in 2 weeks, so he's 2 for 2 defensively in interceptions. And then Valdez actually scores the first touchdown for the South High Wolverines, which we don't get to see here as Valdez throws an incomplete pass right there. But Valdez is right now a lot of the offense for the South High Wolverines. Is they had opportunities to cash in but unable to, and this punt was shanked. It was about a 12-yard kick, and it was a great heads-up play to pick it up and run with it for Bartlett. And the South defense once again coming in making a play. Bartlett Golden Bears end up muffing a punt here as South able to fall on top of it and pick it up. It led to a field goal attempt towards the end of the first half, but they ended up missing the field goal, did South. So Valdez trying to make something happen once again. That Bartlett defense looking stout, and here's that field goal attempt as Emlock ended up missing it wide left. But the South, team that put up a lot of points in week 1 didn't show up in week 2 against Bartlett, which is kind of interesting. And you kind of would think that Bartlett and East maybe the similar caliber of athletes and talent level right now, given how young both teams are. Bartlett able to cash in on a touchdown here after a punt in which the kicker took a knee. It was a bad snap, and he had to field it on one knee, and got the ball on the 5-yard line. They were going to punch it in and tie the game up at 7. Then on the ensuing kickoff, West forgot he had the football apparently because he ended up dropping it and had to scamper back and pick up the football. But here's a 64-yard strike to Autumn, which was on a 3rd and 10 play. And Bartlett had put themselves in decent position to potentially force a punt. It was 3rd and long, and they give up a 64-yard touchdown pass, and that was kind of all she wrote after that. Jones trying to make something happen, scampers for about 12 yards there, but just not enough gas in the tank for Bartlett as the fourth quarter comes down to a whine, and South starts just running the ball a little bit and eating some clock. But I was impressed with the way that Bartlett played defensively. Their offense still has some more work to do. It didn't put up a lot of yardage through the air, and if you're going to run that spread attack, you got to be able to throw the football better than they did against South.
You do, and Bartlett really stepping up and playing some stout defense. It was goose eggs on the scoreboard at the end of the first quarter because South was unable to put any sort of consecutive positive plays together. At the same time, South's defense was playing pretty stout as well, and really keeping Bartlett from being able to not necessarily move the ball, but being able to get into the end zone, because Bartlett found some success in moving the ball there. They had some huge passing plays, for 38 yards, 24 yards going down the field. South unable to score until I'd say a quarter of the way through the second quarter there, and really it was only 7-0 at the end of the half, because Bartlett was able to shut down the offense for South and just doing a great job in stopping the run and stopping the pass. And like you said, when you've got this spread offense, you need to be able to move the ball in the air, and South just unable to do it. You saw there in some of those highlights, some of those balls were right there in the receiver's hands and just unable to hold on to it. And if it wasn't for that 64-yard touchdown run from Autumn as he caught the ball there, and there was really nobody around him as he took it all the way to the house. If it wasn't for that, this game would have been a completely different one, because South made a lot of mistakes, and especially on the offensive side of the ball. I believe they had like 8 offensive penalties, lost quite a few yards, but then you also saw in some of those highlights as Bartlett was horse collaring people and committing defensive penalties as well, giving those penalties or giving those yards back to South. And that play, that 64-yard touchdown to Autumn, that the previous possession, it was a 4th down, and then they ended up going off sides and giving South the first down in order to even get to that place. So Bartlett playing much harder than we have seen them in times past, coming off of a game that they played against Palmer where their defense was pretty stout too. I'm telling you right now, I'm calling an upset for their game against Service.
Congratulations on that call. We'll talk about that next week. So
that's gonna be their first. Can you imagine the first game you win in 2 seasons be against the Cougars?
No. I'm glad you have such confidence in them, because I have more
really
confidence that East is going to beat Palmer than I do of than I do of Bartlett beating South. Service.
I wouldn't go that far. I will say I'd be really interested to see the numbers. We can get our stat guy on this, but what are the numbers? I bet Valdez has almost as many, if not more, interceptions than he does completions.
Yeah.
Given the fact that the guy catches almost everything the other team throws when he's back there playing safety, versus the number of completions that he has because his guys can't catch the ball, I bet the guy's got almost as many interceptions when he's playing safety as he does completions.
We're watching
when
those
he's playing
highlights,
quarterback.
and you and I are going, oh, again.
Yeah,
I mean, how many times do you have to put the ball in the guy's hands and have him just...
Well, he only made like four pass completions against Bartlett.
Goes back to what we talked about last week, and we said after South blew East out, was it really a good assessment of where South is? Was South that good, or was East that bad? And I think this game proves that it was more the fact that East was that bad week 1 than South really was this good. So it's going to be interesting going forward. I'm not sure that Bartlett's going to beat Service, but I would pick Bartlett to beat Service before I would pick East to beat South or Palmer.
And we're going to find out more about that when we come back. We've got our rapid fire segment where we're going to be covering some of these topics. Stay tuned here with us.
The Alaska Sports Channel. We've got Alaska sports covered. UAA Seawolf men's basketball. UAA Seawolf women's basketball. UAA Seawolf volleyball. High school football. High school basketball. High school hockey. Alaska's only TV sports talk program, Final Score, and a lot more. All a part of the Alaska Sports Channel. We have Alaska sports covered.
Welcome back to Final Score, Alaska's premier sports talk program. Skip Hurst, Heath, Keaton, Homer, and Rick Whitbeck, covering the hard topics. Because there's so many of them here.
There are.
In high school football. There's a question I've got to ask you guys. I want to go ahead and get started in this rapid fire real quick. You're going to have 60 seconds to answer these questions as we go through, and there will be a horn to shut you up.
You heard that?
I
think that was directed
that
last segment.
Wait a second.
Are you
okay?
You had a 4-minute soliloquy in the last segment.
Filibuster over here.
Moving right along. In the Rail Belt Conference, which is really what I want to look at right now, Rail Belt, how many places do they get in the playoffs this year?
They get three spots this year out of the 5 teams.
Okay, 3 out of the 5 teams. Well, when we look at Lathrop and when we look at Palmer, usually when Palmer, it has been sitting up there in the Rail Belt for a while now. Lathrop, though, over the past 2 weeks, they've scored 78 points and only allowed 6. Granted, they played Nikiski last week. They won 54-0. They played Diamond, allowed a touchdown. Okay, is Lathrop the better Rail Belt team than Palmer, or should they be ranked number 1? Or what do you think?
It's unproven yet. I think Palmer has played better competition in their first couple of games than Lathrop has. You play Nikiski, a team which has struggled in the first 2 weeks, and then you play Diamond, who appears to be down as well after they lost to Eagle River this past weekend. So I think Lathrop is right now surprising, but I don't think they're better than Palmer. Palmer still has, a lot of talent, a lot of kids on that team. James Nesbitt and that rushing attack is, really, really talented. But if they can keep things rolling with this spread offense, the Lathrop offense is an interesting offense to watch. They ran a lot of 5 wide receiver sets, and then they'd go down to the wishbone on the next play. So it's an interesting dynamic to be able to spread the field and then, have a full house backfield at the same time. And they have a lot of athletes out there on the football field this year. And with only 3 spots, up for grabs in the Rail Belt Conference, they would be able. I think they could sneak in and get one, but they're not better than Palmer.
No, not better than Palmer. All right, look at that. You did that with like 3 seconds to spare.
Got it.
I'm just going to say no. I don't need the whole 60 seconds. I think that, Lathrop is a good, solid team. I watched them in warm-ups, and they looked real good. They looked real athletic, and Heath and I were talking about it at a break. Most of their athletes generally tend to stay on the basketball court. Now they're out on the football field, and they look good. This week, West Valley should be another win. Then they get tough. Then they have to go. They're home for Wasilla. Then they go down to Colony. They stay down in the valley against Palmer. We're going to find out what they're really like in weeks 4 through 6.
Yeah, it's a tough road trip.
That's a tough road to hoe right there. Those 3 games in a row. I'm done. You don't even need 60 seconds.
I agree. That's going to be the toughest part of the season. I think if they played Palmer right now, Palmer would probably come out. It'd be really close. Palmer might come out on top. But long haul, I do believe Lathrop is the best team in the Rail Belt right now, or going to be at the end of the season. I think they have the athletes, and as they get more familiar with this different, varied style of offense, they're only going to get better. It doesn't matter who you play. If you can't complete passes when you're running a spread offense, you're not going to put that many points on the board. The fact that they're able to do that, and we saw South, best team, in the state. They won state last year. They're coming back undefeated so far this year, but we saw them making a lot of mistakes against an inferior team. What we've seen from Lathrop is that they've played at that high level, regardless of the competition. Nikiski, one of the smallest schools in the state, so you would expect them to outscore them significantly. But the athletes they have, I think when they get to week 6 against Palmer, Palmer does not have the speed and the athletes to match up. It's going to be a great game, but I think Lathrop has more athleticism.
You have to be different, don't you?
It's in the blood, man.
It's in the blood.
All right, we're going to go ahead and jump into our next question. There's a few teams out there in the big schools and in the mid schools that are 0-2. They've yet to find their first win here. In the big schools, who's your pick to actually win their first game?
I think West gets a win this week against Eagle River. Eagle River coming off of a high after they got their win against Diamond, which is rare for them to win a game in the Cook Inlet Conference. So for them to pick up their very first win and be 0-1 or 1-0 in the conference to start the year for the first time in school history, they're obviously coming off that win, going to be very, very emotional. But I think West in the same tone will be very emotional. They're 0-2 for the first time in a few years. And I think they're going to play with an energy and a spark in that Week 3 matchup against Eagle River. And I think they'll probably run the football a lot more than they did against Chugiak this past weekend. And from what I've seen out of Eagle River's defense, they have a little bit of trouble stopping the run. They don't have too many, big kids on the other side of the ball. And West has some huge running backs with some speed. So I think West will be the first 0-2 team to pick up a win.
Real quick, a mid-school.
A mid-school that's 0-2? I'd probably go with,
2 of them.
Ketchikan, considering the matchup they have against Sitka coming up. So I think Ketchikan picks up their first win.
All right. Did that within 60 seconds.
Go ahead.
Large school, mid school.
I'm actually going to agree with Keaton. I think West against Eagle River is going to come away with the win. I don't know that they're where they need to be, especially given the fact that their starting quarterback, Sam Whedon, is having an MRI today on his knee, and he could be gone for the season if he tore his ACL. So with the transition at quarterback, Tyrone Davis would be the guy who would step in there. That leaves a lot of questions as far as how they're going to run their offense, because Davis does not have the arm that Whedon does or that we've seen from Connor Feckley the last several years, and so that would change a lot of things within their offense. But I think they'll still get the win over Eagle River. And I'm also going to agree on the mid schools that Ketchikan, I think, will come out on top of Sitka this week and get their first win. So
I'm going to agree with you on the medium schools. Ketchikan, Sitka, the only 0-2 teams in the state. In the medium schools, they play each other this week. I think Ketchikan wins that game. Now I'm going to dare to be different. Keaton, you and I watched a team in week 1 go up against Service and just get beat.
Right.
But they had an offense, and that's the Colony Knights. They play the Wasilla Warriors this week. I'm calling this as a Colony victory over the Warriors.
Okay.
It's going to be a little bit of a Valley surprise upset, but that's my game, and I'm going to call Colony with the win. I think West has a chance to win. I think Bartlett's going to lose, East's going to lose, Diamond's going to lose, West Valley's going to lose, so I'm going to go with Colony.
Wow. Alrighty then. All right. Which 2-0 team do you think is going to get their first loss then?
Their first loss of the year. That's tough to say right now, but I think Lathrop will probably be the first 2-0 team to lose out of everybody in the large school that's undefeated right now. Just given the fact that they played 2 teams that have been, quite frankly, lesser opponents than some of the other teams that have played top-notch or higher quality opponents. So I think Lathrop will be the first one to drop their first loss.
What about your mid school?
Mid school, I would have to go with Juneau. I think Juneau playing North Pole, that's going to be a tough game for them, and I see North Pole winning that game against Juneau.
All right, North Pole being another undefeated team so far. You think North Pole's better than a Juneau team?
I do. I would agree. I think North Pole, whenever those teams face off, I think North Pole is going to come out on top in that one. Could be a really good game, but it could also, I think, it could have its potential to be a blowout. I think Juneau might pull away with that one. As far as the Cook Inlet and the large schools conference, the teams that I think have a better chance of losing their first game, if we don't count out of state, because there's a lot of teams going out of state over the next couple of weeks here. So if we're only counting in-state games, I'm going with Chugiak. Chugiak, I think, gets the win this week against Diamond, but then next week they got to turn around and play Service.
Yeah.
Whether Service wins or loses, as Skip has predicted them to lose to Bartlett, whether they win or lose that, if they lose, they're coming into that Chugiak game with something to prove, and they're going to be pretty fired up. If they win, I think they'll continue to roll. Watching the Chugiak West game this week, both those teams I think are a step below where Service is right now, and so I would predict that Service will win that game.
I'm glad I agree with you a lot of the time, and we agree on this one. Chugiak, I think, probably loses in week 4. I think all of the 2-0 teams go to 3-0 this week. So at least in the big schools. In the medium schools, though, you guys are focusing on Juneau North Pole. It's going to be a great game. I wish we were down there to see it. The other 2-0 matchup is Houston against Sohi, and I'm just going to tell you right now, Houston doesn't have a chance in that game.
Really?
So
Really?
I'm going to put my money where my mouth is.
All right.
Nice.
No, I'm really not. But Houston has no chance. So Houston's going to be the first 2-0 team. And since they play, I believe, Friday night and Juneau North Pole is until Saturday, Houston will be the first 0-2 team or 2-0 team to take a loss.
All right.
This guy.
This guy. Yeah, we'll find out what those predictions come out to be. All right, that's going to be our show here for tonight. I want to thank everybody for tuning in with us. We hope this has been informative and entertaining.
Mainly entertaining. I just go for the entertaining piece.
Yeah, I
I
was
show
gonna
up.
say,
If you want to see entertainment, stick around for tomorrow night's show because I guarantee it's going to be a doozy. Stay tuned here with us tomorrow night, same time, 7 o'clock.
You want to go?
As I play ref between these two guys. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Night.